It's Kirkpatrick here, and you're watching Crimson Drive by NASCAR.
Greetings from Daytona, where a band of dreamers took a strip of beach and turned it into a proving ground. The great American race, where year after year, greatness is the destination. So book your experience and soak in 500 miles of history and tradition. Once you arrive, you'll never look back. Secure your seats now at Daytona500.com.
Roll Tide and welcome to this Tuesday edition of Crimson Drive driven by NASCAR. This is Roger Hoover. Great to be with you as we look back to a fun win against LSU this past Saturday. Look forward to Alabama against Mercer. Even talk some basketball coming up as well, as we're in the crossover season between Alabama athletics. A lot going on here at the Capstone. So let's go ahead and take a look at what's coming up on our show today. Thanks to our friends RJ Young. RJ Young is the official technology solutions provider of Crimson Drive, and they sponsor our headlines of what's coming up for today's show. First things first, we'll take a look back at the LSU win with the Booth Cam highlights, a very entertaining edition of the Booth Cam highlights from this past Saturday from the Yay Alabama Booth Cam that's always streaming live during Crimson Tide football games. Then we'll visit with somebody that got to play some meaningful minutes for the Crimson Tide late in the game against LSU, Dre Kirkpatrick Jr., a freshman at Alabama, obviously the son of Dre Kirkpatrick, who was a star for the Crimson Tide about a decade ago. He'll talk about his transition to playing for the Crimson Tide and getting to wear the number 21, just like his dad. Then we'll have a conversation with Chris Stewart, talking all things Alabama football and basketball, his early impressions of this Crimson Tide basketball team coming up, plus a preview of Hey Coach and the Kalen DeBoer show tomorrow. Then we'll be joined by our Alabama Legend of the Week, former Crimson Tide quarterback Jeff Rutledge. He and his brother Gary will be honored as our honorary captains coming up this Saturday, so a fun conversation with Gary Rutledge about playing for Coach Bryant. Then finally, we will have a little bit of what we had last night from Crimson Tide Rewind at Baumhauer's in Vestavia Hills. We will have Corey Reamer give his thoughts on Alabama football in Be Kind Crimson Tide Rewind. Looking at our headlines, Crimson Tide football team this past Saturday, what a night it was. 42-13, a win over LSU. Just one touchdown scored by the Tigers, and that was pretty late in the ball game against Alabama's second team unit. So really back-to-back games, not allowing a touchdown by Alabama's mainline starters on defense. Jalen Milroe, fine performance, 4 rushing touchdowns, I would say so, 185 yards. He was named the SEC Offensive Player of the Week. Other honors for the Crimson Tide include Tyler Booker, who was great job blocking on a lot of those Jalen Milroe runs. He was the SEC Offensive Lineman of the Week. And then you have Jahad Campbell, who forced a fumble in that game, had a ton of tackles for the Crimson Tide. He is the SEC Defensive Player of the Week for the Crimson Tide, as Alabama picked up that impressive win against LSU, now turning its focus to this Saturday against Mercer. For the men's basketball team, Nate Oates keeps racking up the victories. A 3-0 start for Alabama. The win on Friday against Arkansas State was impressive. 88-79 was the final score. Last night, maybe a little lower scoring for Alabama offensively, but still held a talented McNeese team to only 64 points. Alabama now 3-0 on the year with those wins. Crimson Tide remain ranked at number 2 in the Associated Press poll, and coming up on Friday, it's a top 15 showdown. Alabama in West Lafayette, Indiana, to take on Purdue. 6 p.m. the tip-off. Our coverage will start at 5 all across the network. How about the women's basketball team? Christy Curry's got it rolling as well. A 3-0 start for the Crimson Tide women's team, and on Sunday defeated a talented Troy team out of the Sun Belt. 94-71 was the final score. The win for Coach Curry was notable. It was her 200th victory during her time at Alabama. 200 wins in now 12 years with the Crimson Tide. She has over 500 wins in her collegiate career as a head coach. Just a remarkable accomplishment and another sign of the progress that Alabama's made. Speaking of progress, Alabama moving up 2 spots in the AP poll to number 22. Now this weekend, they'll try and keep it rolling against Norfolk State coming up on Wednesday, Alcorn State on Thursday, before a road trip to ULM coming up on Sunday to wrap up the week. And also wanted to highlight our Champions Lane concert series. We still have 2 home games left to go at Saban Field at Bryant-Denny Stadium. And coming up, Champions Lane will be rocking with Smith Distillery on Saturday morning when Alabama hosts Mercer. Champions Lane, everything will open up at 9 a.m. coming up on Saturday. Smith Distillery will be on stage in addition to our radio coverage before the ball game that starts at 10. We look forward to seeing you back at Champions Lane for the concert series coming up on Saturday. This past Saturday, we were at Tiger Stadium and we had a fun time in the broadcast booth with Alabama's impressive 42-13 win over the LSU Tigers. Let's take a look at our Yay Alabama booth cam highlights that, of course, have the play-by-play of the game, but also a little bit of fun mixed in from a Louisiana Saturday night.
Set to kick it off. He does, and this one will sail high and deep through the back of the end zone. Handoff, no. Keeping it himself, Milroe, 30, 25, foot race, 15, 10, 5. Touchdown, Alabama! Jalen Milroe, 39 yards, and Bama gets on the board first.
We've been talking about the last several weeks. Jalen Milroe is at his best. This offense is at its best when he is the number 2 or number 3 rusher in the pecking order. A&M really gouged LSU's defense with a running attack. I love how Alabama came out on this initial series, committed to running the football.
Quarterback Keith trying to get to the edge. Does. First down, Alabama, as he's pushed out of bounds. A gain of about 4, but we only needed 3. Damian Square, the Tide, going old school right there. A little quarterback Keith to the right.
Hey, if you want to take a crowd out of the game on the road, baby, keep converting third downs and dragging their defense down the field, and that's what we're doing right now, baby.
Now here comes Law in motion. They fake the pitch to him. Milroe dumps it off near side. Miller, 30, 20, 15, pushed out of bounds around the 12-yard line. A great look. Bama flooded everybody to the right side and then dumped it left. Jalen gets the pistol snap, looking, firing across the middle. Catch made, jam at the goal line. Did he get in? He's got a first down. He doesn't have a touchdown. He's about that close from points, though. Whitweek saved the score as Bama will set it up the nose of the football right on the goal line.
Still, you're attacking up the middle. Let's be physical up front and find a way to punch this sucker across.
Oots shifts to the right side with Dupree as the tight ends. The handoff will go up the gut. Hesitates, couldn't get there initially. Stretches forward. Did he get in? Yes! Touchdown, Alabama. Justice Haynes kept the legs driving. He hit the pile. He bounced off of it. He fell forward, and he found pay dirt, and Alabama has now a 13-3 lead. Damian Square, Bama bruising them a little bit here in Bengal country.
Hey, we're doing things the Bama way right now, baby, playing big-time bully ball, and that's how you play great defense on offense, man, putting together long drives, man.
Nussmeier hands it off, and there's nowhere to go. What a hit delivered by Deontay Lawson. The position is called the stinger, and oh, mercy, did he do just that. Play action, Nussmeier forced to scramble. Pressure coming, ball's on the deck. Bama's fighting for it. Bama's got it. A takeaway for the Tide. Picking it up for Alabama. Tim Smith after the fumble was forced by Jahad Campbell.
That's the way you affect the quarterback, man. In this environment, it's kind of hard to hold on to the football. That ball bounced our way, baby. Now we can shove it down there, throw.
So what it was Chester, the center. He just let Campbell run right past him. He's looking to his left. He had no one to go to, and Campbell ran right by him and was able to force that fumble.
He pointed at him the whole way, though, as we saw the replay.
Thinking he had help.
Thinking he had help. He didn't get any. Bama ball, 1st and 10. Quarterback draw, Milroe, 30, 25, cuts back 20, still on his feet, 15. Milroe getting to the boundary wisely and knocked out at the 10. Bama dominating time of possession, 19 minutes plus, 2:39 to go in the half. Bama trying to add to a 14-6 lead. Milroe, 5, Milroe, end zone, touchdown Alabama! The quarterback draw, and the Tide rolls to a 20-6 lead.
You know what a good offensive coordinator does? When he has a successful play, he's not scared to come back to it. Nick Sheridan, they ran the exact same play 2 plays before. It was wide open. Why not call it again? He does. Jalen Milroe, wide open, walks into the end zone.
I am shocked they're not trying to take one shot towards the end zone.
I'm not. The way that this man turns the ball over to Nussmeier, they don't want to risk anything. They want to get in there, regroup, and try to figure out a way to expose this Alabama defense, something they have not done the entire first half.
Nussmeier, right, fires. It's picked off, interception in the end zone. That's a touchback. Great job, Deontay Lawson. Bama turns him away. Lawson brought in the pick, and the Tide turns away LSU. LSU again.
Deontay Lawson put his nose kind of up in the line of scrimmage, and then just reading the quarterback's eyes. He knows he has all kinds of help. He sees the second receiver come in, and he knows that outside slant is coming to him, and he goes up and takes it away.
Milroe running behind Miller, cuts it back 10, 5, touchdown Alabama! Jalen Milroe, 19 yards, his third rushing touchdown of the game, and Bama builds its lead now 27-6.
This is as good as we've seen this Alabama offense look in a while, and I think a lot of it does have to do with the LSU defense. However, Jalen Milroe has 3 touchdowns, but he needs to thank these running backs and what the wide receivers are doing on the edges as well, because he's just getting the credit for what all three of that tandem is doing running the football. This offensive line is dominating the line of scrimmage right now.
Single setback Durham, pressure coming for Bama. He runs into the blitz. He is down right at midfield. Jahad Campbell leveled him, and that will bring up 4th and a bunch for the Bayou Bengals.
Well, Deshaun Jones is actually the one. He's come in and kind of played that nickel. He comes around the middle, and Campbell actually looped all the way around to the left side of the line of scrimmage. He was playing that containment position. So when Nussmeier tried to roll out, it was right into the arms of 11.
And so we will go to the 4th. Alabama, a 28-6 lead over LSU. Milroe, quarterback draw, has room 30, 35, 40, foot race across midfield, 30, 20, 10, good night, touchdown Alabama. 72 yards, and Jalen Milroe sends a good bit of the 102,000 that were here at kickoff for the exits. 34-6. The Tide keeps on rolling. Wow. They're playing our song. Got a lot of Bama folks here. As Burnett will absolutely launch a missile. Fielded all the way at the 15 and then stumbling back at the 10-yard line on the return was Thomas. 62 yards on that one. What a kick from James Burnett. It's that kind of night.
Ouch. This Alabama defense has turned Garrett Nussmeier to check down Charlie. I mean, he is just hitting check down after check down, and that has not gotten it done this evening.
Did that come on after the Brady Bunch?
I heard somebody else talk about that, and I stole it from him.
Nussmeier on 1st and 10. Looking down the right side. Did it get picked? Bray Hubbard. Did he get the hands underneath? They say he did. He says he did. And they're both right. There's a bunch of Crimson still in the house, though, enjoying this one to the very end. Simpson will get the snap. Will hand it off. 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Touchdown, Alabama. Richard Young. 8 yards, untouched. Bama 41, LSU 6. All of the assistant coaches who are in the booth have already gotten down to the field where they're going to be able to enjoy this with the players down there, as well as the rest of the coaching staff. An empty coach's booth. A great thing. So congrats to the Tigers on the touchdown with 11 seconds to go. The extra point by Ramos is good. See if Brian Kelly goes for the onside kick here. Again, victory formation for Simpson, who takes the snap, takes a knee. The final 10 seconds will tick away. And traffic won't be nearly as much of an issue for the Bama faithful as the Tide rolls to a 42-13 win over LSU here in Tiger Stadium. Next up, Mercer in Tuscaloosa.
Experience racing like never before. From the sandy beaches of Daytona to the high banks of one of the most exciting super speedways on the NASCAR circuit. Don't miss out as NASCAR kicks off the 2025 season with the Daytona 500 on February 16th, 2025. Witness history in the making and purchase your tickets today at DaytonaInternationalSpeedway.com. Well, I mentioned one of the players that got some playing time late in the ball game was freshman Dre Kirkpatrick Jr., who's made an impact for the Crimson Tide really on every game so far this year on special teams, but especially this past week against LSU. Really good to see him log some snaps in the Alabama secondary. He joins us at our podcast studio for a one-on-one conversation about his transition from high school football to playing for the Crimson Tide and wearing the number 21, just like his father, Dre Kirkpatrick. Roll Tide and welcome back to Crimson Drive, driven by NASCAR. This is Roger Hoover with you at Saban Field inside the Advantage Center at our podcast studio. Now, please be joined by freshman defensive back Dre Kirkpatrick Jr. to talk about everything going on with the Tide this year. And you, of course, choosing to come play at your dad's alma mater at the University of Alabama. But first of all, Dre, Roll Tide. How's everything going?
Roll Tide. Everything going good.
Got to see you on the field in the second half against LSU. What was it like to get to play in that environment, especially after so many of your teammates had a great game for that Alabama defense?
It was a great environment. It was really just a great experience for real. Just getting out there, getting warm, you know what I'm saying? Just playing my role on special teams. It's just taking the next step for me. It's fun.
We were really glad to see that. How have you seen this group take steps forward together week by week throughout the season?
We just use our motto 1-0, and we just apply it to our day every day and just move forward with all the doubts. We don't even worry about all that. We just 1-0, you know.
Just going 1-0, that's really important. We've seen this group bounce back after some adversity. Who really held the locker room together after some of those tough moments in October?
Everybody. It took every player. It wasn't a one-man thing. It was just everybody coming together and just making it happen.
You pretty excited for what this team's capable of the rest of the way?
Yes, sir. I'm pretty excited to see how far it can go. It got a lot of potential.
It certainly does.
Yes, sir.
Let's go back to you talking about your path to Alabama. Obviously grew up the son of Dre Kirkpatrick, starred for the University of Alabama before a long NFL career. Just how big of an influence has your father been to your football career?
He's a great influence. Every step of the way, he's here. He's watching me every step of the way and guiding me in the right direction. And he's a great mentor, dad, everything in one.
What was it like getting to grow up around the game in a special way like that?
It was fun because I always knew I wanted to play football, and he showed me every step of the way. I seen every step of the way with him before me. So just watching and observing the process with him, it was just fun. I'm just going through the same process now myself.
Any of his NFL teammates you got close with?
Everyone, really. Everybody on the Bengals team and about 2016, everybody was my guys then. Yes, sir.
A lot of other kids of some of those players now you get to see some in college football or keep up with them as they're doing well in high school football?
Yes, sir. Definitely.
That's
a lot of them.
That's really cool. For you, knowing your dad's affiliation with Alabama, was it kind of Alabama from the start with you when you started to be recruited?
Honestly, no. It was just open. It was a lot of different options. They just came in late and swooped me up, but it was a lot of different options, you know.
That's really good to see. What were some of the best moments of your high school career, you feel like?
Just playing with all my cousins. I had a lot of cousins on my high school team, just a lot of family, and it was just fun to go out there and battle with my real blood family. And it was just great chemistry because we grew up together. It was just real fun.
And yeah, a lot of good wins too.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Well, that's really cool to hear about. And you mentioned making that choice. Alabama kind of came in late. Was that still with Coach Saban, or was that mostly this new staff with Coach DeBoer?
It was Coach Saban. Yes, sir.
How great was that, knowing that he coached your dad, and then all of a sudden he's recruiting you and getting you to sign with Alabama?
It was great. He was recruiting me for a long time throughout my whole high school journey, but he didn't give me that offer until I came and balled out in front of him. Like he had to see it in person, and shoot, that's what it was.
Yeah, you signed with Coach Saban, then new coaching staff comes in. Did you like this staff from the start? What they kind of sell you on as your role with this team?
Yes, sir. When he retired, it was crazy, but I didn't make no instant, I didn't jump anywhere. I just stayed down and let me see how, let me see what's coming in, and we just go from there. And every time a new coach came in, it was just green lights. Like it wasn't no negative vibes from the coaches. Good vibes.
That's really good to hear. Who has really helped you in that defensive back room, kind of bring you along your freshman year?
Definitely Devontae Smith, Malachi Moore, Keon Sapp, sure.
Do you like picking their brains about how to play and really all aspects of the game?
Honestly, they just always own it. They don't have to ask too many questions because they already on it.
Do you like the swarm D mentality that Alabama has?
Yes, sir. I feel like that's the best thing that we brought in coming in because right when I got here, I don't remember nothing like that, but it was cool seeing that. So we actually had something to name our defense. That was cool.
It really has been cool, and that's a group that has seen some change during the course of the season. Keon Sabb goes down with injury. Bray Hubbard steps up. Have you been impressed with the play that Bray's made over the last few weeks?
Yeah, Bray's doing good. He balling out. He averaging 2 picks a start.
Pretty hard hits too, right?
Yeah, and he could tackle.
Yeah, he really can. That's really special. How much have you enjoyed getting to play here during your home games at Saban Field?
It was fun. It's just a nice home environment. It just feel like home.
Was it 21 always going to be your number choice?
No, sir. At first, I was going to choose number 4, and then I started just thinking about it. Like it only makes sense if I go with number 21.
That's been really good. Has your dad been able to come to pretty much most of the games?
Yes, sir. He done made it to all of them.
That's really good. What do you want this rest of the year to look like for you and your role in this football team?
I want to keep doing what I'm doing and getting better every day, and just take advantage of all my opportunities that come to me.
We look forward to seeing it. Drake Kirkpatrick Jr., thank you so much for all the time you've given us here on the Crimson Tide Sports Network. Best of luck with everything else coming up this year. Roll Tide.
Roll Tide.
What's up? I'm Neil Hibbett, and you're watching Crimson Drive, driven by NASCAR.
Greetings from Daytona, where year after year, greatness is the destination. So book your experience and soak in 500 miles of history and tradition. Secure your seats now at Daytona500.com.
From Drake Kirkpatrick Jr. to the voice of the Crimson Tide, Chris Stewart, who's been very busy for us here on the network calling football and men's basketball, and he joins us to detail what he's seen from both of those squads as football is in full swing. Another impressive win against LSU. Men's basketball off to a great start. Here's our conversation with the voice of the Crimson Tide, Chris Stewart. Chris, it's a Victory Tuesday edition of the show. We get to talk about not only wins for Alabama basketball, but how about this football team taking care of business in a huge way on Saturday in Baton Rouge?
Yeah, that was special and fun, as you well know. And I will say unexpected, not in terms of the result with Bama winning. Bama has been highly successful in that stadium over the years, much more successful than not. But it's always a tight game. It's always competitive. It's always gut-wrenching going into the fourth quarter, and that wasn't the case. Alabama had it well in hand before we ever flipped to the fourth. That was very different. That was very enjoyable. And I think it's also a clear indication of the direction that this team is going. There's some good things happening right now, and I think they've weathered the storm. I'm not saying that the final 3 weeks are a cakewalk in the regular season. And should they handle business, we don't know exactly where the postseason will start, but we know there's going to be one, and it's going to be meaningful. And that's really a heck of an accomplishment for this team that was really struggling to find some identity and some consistency about a month ago, but it's not an issue right now.
How impressive was Jalen Milroe on Saturday?
He looked like Jalen, and that's a good compliment. Now, again, if you hadn't seen him, that doesn't mean a whole lot, but if you have, and virtually everybody that's tuning into this podcast certainly is well aware of what the best version of Jalen Milroe looks like, and he was terrific. And I think it's so good to see him running the football with the effectiveness that he did, in addition to throwing it well. They've game planned very well for him to get him some confidence early. But man, his ability to not just have the strength and the speed, but he read some some runs. And we think about it a lot with a quarterback. When you talk about a read, you're usually talking about right around the line of scrimmage. He saw some things a few yards downfield with things still developing on that offensive or with the blocking scheme. And just a thing of beauty to watch him read the holes and then just blow through and be able to outrun everybody. So electric. You know, we've said it for a while, but on a team with two really good running backs, he's the third. And at his best, I'm not so sure he isn't the best, with all due respect to both Jam and Justice. He is very tough to bring down. And first of all, you just got to catch him, and good luck with that. Because when that horse is out of the stable, he is taken off and very, very tough to catch.
Already on this show, we've seen the booth cam highlights from LSU, but I think your best moment of the night maybe was something going to break, talking about a Louisiana Saturday night. Just give us the genesis of that brilliant line you delivered.
As you well know, most good stuff over the years has always come from Tom Stipe's mouth into our ears, and some of it you can actually use on air. And Tom and I were just kind of joking earlier in the week about wouldn't it be nice if, and kind of together we came up with that. There's more to it, but sometimes less is more, and that's a rarity that I go that route, that less is more, but it just kind of fit, never really thinking that it was going to be as much of a margin, or that you could use the line earlier than we intended necessarily. But it was really cool to be able to have some fun and enjoy ourselves. And again, no disrespect intended whatsoever to LSU. And in fact, as I said earlier, it's so rare that you can go into the late stages of a game actually feeling good about what the outcome's going to be. We always go down there with confidence because of what history has been for Alabama for whatever reason in that stadium. You know, the line is, and it's understandable, one of the toughest places in America to play. And we've been able to smile, thankfully, and tag it with for everybody except Alabama. Well, it's normally tough all the way to the wire. And just kind of nice to be able to take a deep breath, smile, have some fun. And we got some great traditions around our league. Normally, you know, calling Baton Rouge is a signal that they're about to get you. And I've said also, hold that tiger. Usually it's too late. That tiger's already got hold of you. But instead of calling Baton Rouge, they were probably having to call 911 in the fourth quarter of that thing. And the Louisiana Saturday night, they were getting down the fiddle, getting down the bow, and struggled with Saban, and now struggling with DeBow. And a little poetic license there, but again, it's meant for fun for our fan base. That's who we're talking to on our broadcast. I've said it forever, Roger. If you're a fan of another team and you tune in, I really hope that very, very soon, within you turning to our broadcast, you're going to hear score time down and distance in football, score time ball position in basketball. But beyond that, we're watching it from a Bama filter, the Bama fans' perspective, talking to Alabama fans. So if somebody else is tuning in from outside the fan base, then again, I hope they can follow what's going on, and you're welcome to listen in. But we ain't talking to you. We're talking to Bama fans, and I think we were all enjoying what was happening on Saturday in the Bayou.
We've enjoyed that. Of course, in basketball, we've already enjoyed 3 wins for Nate Oates and the Crimson Tide. You were on the call last night against McNeese. Just what have you made of the starts of the season, and now an important stretch coming up for Nate Oates and the Crimson Tide?
Yeah, it is. I think one of the things that they're going to have to be careful with, and just from my own perspective, may be totally wrong. I think they're going to have to guard against complacency when a game gets to be 15 points or more, because they know they're talented enough to bury most teams. They've got them down, but they've had a couple of games where they've kind of gotten sloppy. Arkansas State being one with again, Arkansas State's good now. You can't relax against them. And we saw you can't relax against McNeese. If you've got a lead, you've got to build it. And they got to 21, kind of relaxed a little, and all of a sudden, that's down to a 6-point ball game. And that's to McNeese's credit that they fought, stayed in it, still made a game of it. But this team, when it's at its best and when it's locked in, is going to be really, really tough to beat. And I don't think that's going to be an issue. Now, they may not win at Purdue, but it's not going to be because they're not dialed in and not locked in. They understand that's going to be a tough place to play against a very good program, one that played in the national championship, albeit with, some different looks to their roster, but still really talented group that they're going to square off with on Friday. And you'll get a chance to see it front row seat. I don't know if you've broadcast from there before. I have a couple of times, and it's special. It's a great college basketball venue, but I hope it's another place that Bama comes away with a special victory.
We look forward to that coming up later this week. And then on Saturday, Alabama against Mercer. Chris, just all the best with everything that's coming up, including Hey Coach on Wednesday night. We look forward to seeing you all throughout the week. And hopefully we're talking about more Bama wins this time next week. But thank you for your time. Roll Tide, Chris.
Roll Tide, buddy. Always appreciate it.
Don't miss out on your chance to experience the energy and the excitement of the Great American Race. Witness history in the making and purchase your tickets today for the 2025 Daytona 500 at DaytonaInternationalSpeedway.com. Appreciate Chris with his weekly chat with us here on the Crimson Tide Sports Network on Crimson Drive, driven by NASCAR. And on Tuesdays, we always like to highlight an Alabama legend. And this week, it's one of the best that ever ran the wishbone offense for the Crimson Tide. Quarterback Jeff Rutledge is our guest. He and his brother Gary were the two main quarterbacks for Alabama in the 1970s under legendary head coach Paul Bear Bryant, and they'll be honored as our honorary captains for this Saturday's game against Mercer. Here's our one-on-one conversation with Crimson Tide legend Jeff Rutledge. Jeff, Roll Tide, congratulations on this honor. Are you looking forward to being back in Tuscaloosa coming up on Saturday?
I am looking forward to it. It's been a long time since I've been in Tuscaloosa. I think it was probably the last time that I was an honorary captain a few years back. Just living in Nashville, it's just not easy to get down there every weekend.
Well, we're certainly looking forward to having you back as you and your brother are being honored as part of the Legacy Weekend for Alabama Athletics. And I'll just start with this. What did it mean to you to play right after your brother, of course, was a great quarterback for the Crimson Tide? How meaningful was it to get to play, in addition to him, for Coach Bryant and win championships at Alabama?
Well, that was huge. When I went to Alabama, when I committed to Alabama, I wanted to have my high school number, which was 15, but Jack O'Rear had that number. So I immediately asked my brother, I said, would you mind if I was your number? And, he made the comment, he said, I'd be honored. And so that's why I chose number 11. And because my brother and I were very close. We were, the only two in our family, and we did everything together, sports. He was a great athlete, as not just a great football player. I felt he was a good baseball player as well, and just had some bad luck in high school with injuries for baseball, or he could have had a baseball career. But Gary and I were very close, very close.
Absolutely. Just brag on him for a second. What were some of your favorite moments for him in a Crimson Tide uniform?
Just the LSU game, them just coming off the LSU, win, him going to Baton Rouge and then being on the cover of Sports Illustrated after that game was, I know, a huge thrill for him, but it was fun. I remember I was in the hospital. I'd had an injury in high school, and I was in the hospital bed watching him play that game with a bunch of my teammates from Banks High School. So it was a thrill.
What do you remember about being recruited specifically by Coach Bryant?
Coach Bryant was didn't say a whole lot, but when he said something, you certainly he got your attention. I had narrowed my commitment down to Alabama and pretty much LSU, and Coach Bryant was speaking at a Touchdown Club meeting, and I got a call about 9 o'clock one night, and he said, "Jeff, this is Coach Bryant. Can I come by? I won't be there 5 minutes, but I just want to come by and see you. I just got out of a Touchdown Club meeting." I said, "Well, sure, Coach, come on by." And you got to know Coach Bryant, but he comes in and, he starts smoking his Camel cigarette that he smoked back in those days. And my mom gets him an ashtray, and he's smoking on it and didn't use the ashtray, happened to miss the ashtray, I guess. And it went onto my mom's carpet. And my mom got up and was, "Oh my gosh." And Coach Bryant looks down and goes, "Oops." sorry. And then he goes, well, Jeff, what's this I hear about you going to LSU? And I said, well, Coach, they're running the same offense I'm running at Banks, and throwing the ball a lot more than what Alabama's throwing it. And he looked at me and said, you want to win a national championship, don't you, son? And I said, well, of course I do, Coach. He said, you won't win one there. Jeff, good to see you. Mr. and Miss Rutledge, good to see you. He wasn't there 5 minutes. He just came in there to basically tell me, hey, you won't win a national championship if you go to LSU. So, and needless to say, I went to Alabama and won a national championship.
Yeah, just the length of a cigarette, that visit. That's a pretty good story. Yeah, you go to Alabama, you have success, so 3 SEC championships, the 1978 national championship. What do you feel like allowed you to be a good quarterback in that offense for Alabama?
Well, I think what Coach Moore allowed me to do, which not all Wishbone quarterbacks threw the ball that much, and we still didn't throw the ball that much, but I threw the ball more than any other Wishbone quarterback had ever thrown it. And I think still to this day, I don't think any other Wishbone quarterback threw it more than I did. We just didn't throw it that much. I mean, if I threw it 10 times a game, I was lucky. I think the most I ever threw in a season was 118, 120 something passes. But when we did, we had success because it's sort of like, and when, don't like to bring the Alabama Vanderbilt game up this year, but it reminded me a lot watching that game because I was at that game. It takes a while to prepare for an offense like what we ran at Alabama and what Vanderbilt runs, an option. But if you got somebody that can throw it as well, it makes it even tougher. And that's what we were able to do at Alabama. I mean, they sit up there and beg me to run. They want me to run the ball because they didn't want Major Ogilvy to get it. They didn't want Tony Nathan to get it. They didn't want Josh Davis to get it. They said, well, we'll make Rutledge run it. But the great thing is they try to stop the run. And then I had Ozzie Newsome out there for 2 years throwing the ball to him one-on-one, which is tough to defend. And so you can't stop those type of offenses. It's hard to stop both phases of the game. And then we were able to throw it.
You certainly were. A great college career at Alabama. And you mentioned being a wishbone quarterback. I didn't see the wishbone offense much in the NFL at that time. How did you transition to playing in the NFL and eventually having a very long, successful career there?
I was very fortunate that, and I didn't get the benefit of having an NFL combine back in those days. The coaches would just come work you out at school, and you would just say, okay, well, hopefully somebody's going to draft me. Well, Ray Perkins was the coach at the Giants at the time, and he worked me out like 3 or 4 times, and he had told me he's going to draft a quarterback in the first round. And he says it's either going to be you or it's going to be Phil Simms from Morehead State. Well, obviously it was Phil Simms from Morehead State, and I was told though that I would go no later than the 6th round, and I don't even go the first day of the draft. And now my attorney's telling me, who was Robert Fraley, an ex-Alabama quarterback, was my attorney, and he said, "Well, Jeff, it may be better that if you don't get drafted, then you be a free agent." And I went, no. Here I am supposed to not go no longer in the 3rd round, and now not even get drafted. And so I get a call from the Rams, and my wife and I, we got married in college, and my wife and I, they made a comment, well, there's 3 places we would rather not be if it's up to us: LA, New York, and New Orleans. Well, I get drafted by LA. I get traded to New York, and we're like, oh, I guess we'll end up in New Orleans. Well, we didn't end up in New Orleans, thank goodness. We ended up in Washington. But it was, I had to prove myself every year. I never went to a training camp in pro football. This is the God's truth, knowing that I would be there at the end of the cuts, because I had to prove myself year in and year out. And because I didn't have that background, I would have given anything to run the offenses these kids run today in college. I mean, throwing it 40, 45 times a game. I mean, even Milroe at Alabama, I mean, he throws more almost in a game, some games than I did almost in a whole season, which is crazy, but good for those guys. But that's how the game has progressed, and it's fun to watch.
It really is fun to watch, and a great playing career for you in the NFL. And then you even did some coaching as well. Did a lot of lessons from Coach Bryant or Coach Moore really flow to you for your coaching career that you had?
Coaching is a tough business. I've enjoyed my time. I've coached on every level, high school, college, and pro. But it's a tough way to make a living. I mean, because I go to a Super Bowl and I get fired 2 days later. We go to the Super Bowl with Kurt Warner when I was out with Arizona. And 2 days later, coach tells me I'm not going to be part of the staff the next year. And so I always tell people today, and it's just, I'm joking when I say it, but I say, don't let your babies grow up and be coaches, because it's just, there's no security in it. I mean, you see it week in and week out. I mean, or year in, year out at the end of the season. It's always, in the pro game, it's that Monday right after the season, there's always 4 or 5, 6 guys getting fired. And in college football, there's guys getting fired, talked about getting fired. Even in high school now, coaches are getting fired. It's all about winning. And but my whole philosophy, it was all about the kid. What are you teaching the kids? You spend more time with them than their parents do. And so the impact a coach can make on a player is huge. And that was my philosophy, is what kind of impact can I have on a kid's life? Because a lot of these kids didn't have fathers, or they didn't have a home relationship to where that I had. I mean, I had a dad that was very tough on me, but I knew he loved me, and he wanted the best for me. And so I was always trying to get to know my kids, get to know what buttons I had to push. That's what made Coach Bryant so great, is he got to know his players. Everybody was different, and he knew what buttons he had to push with every player. Some guys he'd have to chew them out, others he didn't. He looked at me the wrong way, and yes, sir, I got the message, but I saw Coach Bryant come out of that tower many times after somebody. And it was like, whoa, but he got their attention, didn't really do anything other than come out of there and chew somebody out and then go right back up there in that tower. And same in pro football. When I had, Bill Parcells, very similar. I mean, Bill was a great coach, a Hall of Fame coach in pros, but he got to know his players. He knew what buttons he had to push to get them to play the way he wanted them to play.
Jeff Rutledge being celebrated this weekend along with his brother Gary, part of the Legacy Weekend coming up here in Tuscaloosa. Jeff, just thank you so much for the time you've given us here today on the Crimson Tide Sports Network. All the best to you and your family as you get celebrated this weekend, and we look forward to seeing you. Roll Tide. Thank you.
We can't wait to get there. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Friends, check out Game Day Done Right, because there's one thing we can really all agree on. No one wants to be the last one left at a tailgate at the end of the game, having to do all the cleanup, all the breakdown while their friends are out celebrating. If you've been in this situation before, you know the true value in what the team at Game Day Done Right provides. They handle the entire process for you, from setup to breakdown. Stellar customer service on game days to make sure your group is taken care of from start to finish. All you have to do is visit GameDayDoneRight.com, reserve your tailgate package, and let their team take it from there. Appreciate it. Well, last night, while a lot of you were having fun at Coleman Coliseum with basketball against McNeese, Corey Reamer and I had a good time in front of a great crowd, as always, at Baumhauer's Victory Grill in Vestavia Hills for Crimson Tide Rewind, presented by the Alabama Department of Public Health. Corey and I really broke down the LSU game, looked ahead to Mercer as well. The full episode is available to listen to on the Alabama Insider podcast. You can also watch on our YouTube channel, but here's kind of the best of from last night's edition, and something we like to call Be Kind, Crimson Tide Rewind. Corey, Roll Tide, great to talk after an Alabama very impressive win against LSU on Saturday.
Yeah, you definitely can't draw it up any better than going to Baton Rouge and walking away with that kind of a victory. You take the wind out of the sails pretty early. You first play of the game, you get the false start. You're not sure how things are going. I'm sure the decibel level down in the stadium was incredibly high at that point, but I think playing at Tennessee earlier in this season really helped this team be able to handle the adversity, and it didn't bother them. They go out there and find a way to win. And I mean, probably the best, most complete game that we've seen from this team so far this season. Offense, defense, all around was a phenomenal game. And you couldn't start peaking at a better time throughout the season. Obviously, LSU, we knew they had some weaknesses. We talked about it right before, a couple weeks before this game, right before the bye week of they've not handled running quarterbacks very well, and you didn't know if Alabama was going to try to go in and get too creative, but they didn't. They gave the ball to number 4, who looked healthy. He looked incredible this weekend. Played, obviously, one of his best games as well. He went out there and executed extremely well. The ball was coming out of his hand a lot cleaner, more crisp, on target than we've seen over the last couple weeks. I thought it was a huge week of improvement that we, the middle part of the season, October was rough. You come out of October with 2 losses, but you find a way to shut out Missouri, hang 36 points on them, and then you go to Baton Rouge against the top 20 ranked team and absolutely demoralize them.
And for this defense, and that's now back-to-back games against SEC opponents, you have not allowed a touchdown for the first unit officially. The second team did allow a touchdown late, but
we didn't bring the starters back in at the end of that game to prevent that last touchdown. But no, it was an incredible performance by the defense for sure.
Yeah, just again, it kind of felt once again like Alabama football, and that's what fans have been clamoring for the last few weeks.
Yeah, I think that early on we saw this offense was really carrying this team. It was big play after big play. Didn't really have a ton of just, it was 2-3 plays, get touchdowns off the field, defense goes out, gets a stop, and then during the middle part of the season, it was, it didn't seem like we were bringing that physicality that we're used to seeing from this Alabama team. Defense is trying to figure out, how to get some stops, allowing a lot of points being scored. Offense kind of slows down, and you saw through that middle part of that season where, if the offense isn't scoring 40-something points, we were in for a dogfight because the defense really couldn't get stops. In these last 2 weeks, holding some of these offenses that we faced, albeit it was, Missouri, who was a little bit banged up, and LSU doesn't have a phenomenal offense, but you cannot take away from what this defense was able to go do on the road in the SEC at night. It's not a feat that you have to just look over because, this LSU offense isn't as good as they've been in the past. They've still been able to put points up on good teams so far this season. So you feel like this defense is riding a momentum wave, and they're feeling comfortable in what the game plan is. And I think this coaching staff has figured out really how to grow for the beginning of the season. They know what to go out there and call, and these guys are playing fast on the defensive side of the ball. They're playing quick. They seem like they understand the concepts. Everything's starting to somewhat come together. I remember the first year that Coach Saban got there, even though we had a little bit more time, it wasn't much more time than what this staff had with us. And it took almost the entire summer and into the first few games of starting to kind of understand these calls, how it's supposed to look, what the coaches are trying to do when they're calling certain plays. And I think that you heard Coach DeBoer talking about it after the game is these guys are starting to come together. This team's starting to come together. There's been a lot of growth throughout this season. We as fans over the last, 15, 16 years having to have that change again where we've got a new staff and new players and new schemes. You don't realize how much time and repetition it takes for you to get comfortable as a team, but they're starting to kind of look like they're making that transition pretty nicely here towards the end.
Highlight we just heard, that might have been my favorite play of the night. Jahad Campbell with a very tough hit, forcing the fumble, and of course Tim Smith right there to pick it up. But Jahad Campbell's playing a very high level of football.
Yeah, I think what we're getting from both of our inside backers, and Jahad Campbell and Deontay Lawson are playing at an extremely high level. This defense just felt like they were playing, not only this offense playing downhill, but this defense was just playing downhill, bringing the physicality to this team. We've talked about it on this show earlier in the year it seemed like we were just catching, from a tackling standpoint. We were not the ones that were delivering the hits and being the aggressor. And this defense seems to be turning it around. They're comfortable out there. They're getting after it. But Deontay Lawson had a phenomenal game. Jahad Campbell, those guys are I thought Kane Womack's game plan going in for this one was absolutely phenomenal. Go out there and puts a lot of pressure on Garrett Nussmeier. The conditions of the game, with it being so wet, he's had a tendency to turn the ball over a bunch throughout this season. He's a good quarterback. I think if you look at any of the NFL scouting reports, what they say about this guy is that he's got phenomenal zip on the football. He's got all the qualities that can make him probably one of those like Chase Daniel. If you remember that from Missouri, he plays in the league for 10, 15 years because he's got all the intent, the qualities that you want out of a quarterback. But for this year for LSU, he's out there, he's turning the ball over a bunch, and we knew going into this if we could put some pressure on him, get in his face, he's going to throw us the football. And we caused a number of strip sacks, a number of fumbles, some interceptions, and it was just a phenomenal game plan, I thought, and everybody executed it very well. There was, not many mistakes that I saw from the defensive side of the ball that we've seen throughout this season. It didn't seem like we were making the same mistakes, and we went out there and executed against an LSU offense that's, towards the back end in terms of rankings of what their output is. But, we've seen it before in this already throughout this season. We've played teams that have not had great offenses, but we've given them confidence to stay in these ball games. And the last thing you want to do is when you go on the road is give them a reason to believe that they can go out there and execute. Well, we took it away, and there was moments where LSU had opportunities to go out there and gain some momentum, and then we go out there and create turnovers, whether it be the fumble, the strip sack fumble, or the interception on the 5-yard line. There's a lot of opportunities. This defense kind of were in that bend but don't break. They were playing extremely well, but allowed some drives to continue, especially early on. It looked like LSU was moving the ball at will, and then you hold them to a field goal. Yep. Massive win for this defense, especially in the way these offenses in college football play today.
Really cool to see that. And even Alabama's coordinators, Kane Wommack's always on the field, but I love, too, that Nick Sheridan got to come down from the press box early. Alabama fans salute him on the way back to the sideline. That's a pretty cool moment for the
it is.
Staff.
I mean, those guys, they're working their tail off. And, as fans, we're criticizing them, and we're wondering what's going on. You got 2 losses. Things don't look the way that we're used to seeing this Alabama team look. You're losing to teams that you've not lost to in 40 years. A lot of criticism is flying their way, and it's incredible for them to have that moment because they obviously know that they believe in their system. They believe in what they do. They've been successful at a lot of different places. For them to have that moment, and that just it takes a little bit of pressure off those guys where they can enjoy it. It's great to see for this coaching staff. And you heard Coach DeBoer talking about, I think it was at his press conference today, is we're finally seeing our values and what we want to do and instill in this team. They're starting to show in the product that we're putting out there on the field. It's as a coordinator that's out there calling this game, that those guys were excited to be able to celebrate how these guys played on Saturday.
As we talked about, it's Alabama just trying to take care of business in non-conference play this weekend against a very good team in the Mercer Bears. What has to happen, Corey, for the Crimson Tide on Saturday? Yeah,
I think we talked about it earlier, you can't fall asleep for this game. You got to be ready to go play. It's a 1 o'clock kick. You're coming off of a massive win. The good thing is that we put this game away early and emptied the stadium pretty, early in the fourth quarter. We're able to put in a lot of our backups and hopefully get those guys some rest. It wasn't one of those games that just goes all the way to the very end or requires overtime, which we've kind of grown accustomed to with this matchup usually. But this is one that you can't take off. You can't just go out there and wonder when you're going to get pulled from the game and the backups are going to come in and get their opportunities to play. You got to go out there and take care of business. Because this is another opportunity for us, like we said earlier, is to build on the momentum that we have, continue to go out there and execute, learn a lot from this week of practice because, this is going to transition for the rest of this season, and we still have a lot of football left to play. If we take care of business, there's a lot of football games left that we have to go out there and play if we were able to make it into the postseason, into the playoffs, and you got to continue to improve. Fine-tuning on the things that we have control over and executing to the highest ability, no matter who it is. You got to take advantage of it.
Well, we go back to the phones for one final call tonight. Let's go to Hartsville where Joe joins us now. Roll Tide, Joe.
Roll Tide, guys. Hey, we know we got to win out, guys, but what's the best formula for SEC teams to beat each other up for us to get in the playoffs?
Yeah, I think there's a number of different scenarios that are out there. There's a really good chance, what I was looking at today, that there is a 10-2 team out there in the SEC. If they, a team that finishes 10-2 that might get left out of this 12-team playoff. It's very possible. It's just crazy to think about for sure. But there's a number of different things that can happen where somebody like that gets left out. But I think if Alabama, sitting where they sit right now, ranked number 9, if they take care of business and win these last 3 games, I don't think that team is going to be us. You got Georgia and Tennessee that are playing this weekend. Whoever loses that game if Tennessee loses, that's another potential 10-2 team. We can have a lot of them spread across, the top, 6 or 7 teams in this conference that are sitting with the same record. I've seen what the scenario looks like of going down, how do they determine who those teams are? It could get very interesting, and I don't have the time nor the brain power to try to figure out what all those different scenarios that could play out could potentially mean. But I know this: if we win these games, we're going to be in the playoff. It might not mean that we're in Atlanta, but I think there's still pretty good chances for that happening as well.
Absolutely, and I think maybe the one team that I would really say should be left out, Missouri. I know Eli Drinkwitz told Cole Kubalik in that post-game interview, we have a great path to playoff, and they do at 7-2, but if Alabama's head-to-head with you, sorry, Alabama beat you 34-0.
Yeah, I mean, if you go out there and you've got to start selling at this part of the season that your team is deserving of a spot in the playoffs, I'm pretty sure the rest of the country has seen what the product is that you're putting out there, and they're not believing in it. You might have a decent record, but I shout out to our man Jerry back in studio, but I don't think Missouri is going to be one of those teams that is really going to have a chance to win one of those spots. They might be one of those teams that gets left out.
A busy week ahead coming up on the Crimson Tide Sports Network with football, men's and women's basketball in full swing. Let's take a look at our upcoming schedule. Coming up tomorrow, we'll be busy in Tuscaloosa. A women's basketball game against Norfolk State starting at 6 p.m. Also at Baumhauer's in Tuscaloosa, a new edition of Hey Coach and the Kalen DeBoer Show as well. That will be starting at 6 o'clock as well at Baumhauer's in Tuscaloosa. Then on Thursday, women's basketball team back in action as they get to play back-to-back days, getting ready for their Thanksgiving tournament coming up as Alabama will host Alcorn State at Coleman Coliseum. Tip off at 6. Our radio coverage always 15 minutes prior to tip-off starting at 5:45. We'll also have a new edition of Tide TV this week coming up on Friday to our TV affiliates across the state and at RollTide.com, as well as the men's basketball game at Purdue. Our radio coverage will start at 5 for the Crimson Tide and the Boilermakers in a top 15 matchup. Saturday, it's all about football. Alabama against Mercer, kicking off at 1 o'clock inside Bryant-Denny Stadium. Our coverage will start outside Saban Field at Bryant-Denny Stadium at 10 a.m. at Vector Security Champions Lane. Then coming up on Sunday, we will have a new episode of the Kalen DeBoer TV show with Chris Stewart and Coach DeBoer, as well as women's basketball finishing up its second week of play on the road in Monroe, Louisiana against ULM. That's our upcoming schedule. Make sure you follow us at UA_CTSN for all the very latest on Crimson Tide Athletics and a lot of interview clips from Crimson Drive driven by NASCAR, plus booth and courtside cam highlights available as well. It's going to wrap up a very busy Tuesday edition of Crimson Drive driven by NASCAR. Huge thank you to our video producer, Ethan Carabin, for putting this show together. We also appreciate the time of Dre Kirkpatrick Jr., Jeff Rutledge, and Chris Stewart, in addition to Corey Reamer from last night's edition of Crimson Tide Rewind. For all of us with the Crimson Tide Sports Network, this is Roger Hoover saying thank you for watching this edition of Crimson Drive driven by NASCAR. We'll see you right back here on Thursday at 2 p.m. for a new edition of Crimson Drive driven by NASCAR. Roll Tide, everyone.